Hi, I'm Kiwi,
I'm Jared.
and we are the two gentlemen coming to you from outside the box
Funny you should say that, considering we're in lockdown.
in a box.
In a box.
We've never been more inside a box than the past 7 weeks, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, thanks.
Close
That's a
enough.
good start. Good start. We're very professional.
Jared, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Just been pottering around the house and going through a few things. I've actually found my great grandfather's razor. So I know that sounds a bit weird, but the razor he would have used to shave, and then I think it was kind of handed down through the family. So it's a bit of a family, heirloom that's probably worth $0. But it just made me think, and then I saw an ad for a razor on my on Facebook or something, and it was a specific razor with four moisturizing strips to make sure the neck and the face don't get rashed up and red and sore. And so we've gone from where people used a razor called a cutthroat to now a razor basically surrounded by pillows that are moisturized. So I'm just society has come a long way in razors. But anyway, that was just my little observation. Maybe.
That is cool. Is it so? It's one of those cool vintage razors that is like a bit like a switchblade that you flick out, and it's just raw.
Yeah, it's got some some sort of handle that's obviously made of something that we don't make things with anymore. Probably ivory or something. But yeah. No, as I said, it's just funny how it's all they were using cutthroats. So yeah. But anyway, what about yourself, mate? You've been getting out and about, or
yeah, I've been handing razors down to my children, and hopefully they'll pass that on to their children.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't know if the new four strips of moisturizing razor has the same thing in 100 years time. If people are looking at that and going, "Oh, they were barbaric."
We won't even have hair in 100 years. We're genetically modifying ourselves to just craft our beards however we want.
Won't have hair. I'm head of the game then.
Yeah. You're a trailblazer, Jared.
Except for my earlobes down, but yeah. No, mate. I was just thinking on a subject to speak of. I watched a documentary recently with Michael Jordan documentary called The Last Dance. It's a 10-part series, so it's quite a commitment, and it's basketball related. So I can understand why people wouldn't, always tune into it. But as a sports fan, as a basketball fan, it was a must watch for me. But what I got out of it, other than just the usual sort of, watching how he went about his business, was his competitiveness was just on another level, and on a level so much that people really disliked him. But he is the greatest of all time at what he's done, and I don't think he's not just a generational player. I think he's a once in 100-year player.
Yeah.
So the competitive nature within a team sport, is just as an individual, he got all these accolades and done all these things within the game, but players that played with him, so he had to play in a team sport of 5 on the court with 12 all up. These guys had to have that same competitive nature, and he had to beat that into them in some cases, literally. And that's the way he looked at things. And to hear him interviewed even now is just, he couldn't play a game of cards without being competitive. He can't play a game of golf. He can't walk down the street without, have that competitive sort of nature. I mean, is that, I mean, he's an exception where he's made squillions of dollars and has a life of, do anything he wants. Well, maybe not, but, he can buy or do anything he wants. But, in normal society where we all have to go to work and live and have a family, is being competitive good or bad?
Yeah, look, it depends on the person. It depends on what you want out of life. I personally couldn't live like that. Not because people didn't like him off the court, mean, that's people might not like you for other reasons, regardless of whether you're competitive or not. So you can't really factor that into it, really. But it's that high octane living, that always being on, that I'd find very toxic. So I won't say it's bad, but I always thought it's good to be competitive when you need to be. I always thought the coolest guys were the ones who switched it on and switched it off very well. I actually recall this football game earlier this year where something happened, and normally a fight, well, not anymore because you're not allowed to throw punches, but a fake fight breaks out. And there were these two players on this team who just stood there, and they were just so chill. They're like, "Hey guys, just calm down." It's like everyone listened to them. I don't know why we can't turn it on and off like that. I think for me, I push myself really, really hard where I need to, but when I don't need to, why can't we just all chill out and have fun?
So controlled competitiveness is what you're saying.
That's a great way of putting it, Jared. What about you? I mean, you're, like I've described in the past, you're an elite athlete, but I know you better off the field than on, and off the field, you still are just a really chilled out guy.
Yeah, I would say that my competitiveness is actually not that. I'm sorry to everybody I ever played sport with, but it doesn't overly worry me if I won or lost.
Now you tell us.
Yeah, sorry about that. But there is a competitive nature when you do get out there and start doing things, and you get in that sort of team environment, and you have a goal and you want to reach it. But it didn't. Okay, I cared, but then when I got off the field, I didn't. I was over it. It didn't bother me. So I don't know. Maybe that is a controlled competitiveness where I can just switch it off and it doesn't affect the rest of my life. I can't think of anyone in particular, and I wouldn't say it anyway, but I know of people that, if they lost on the weekend, it would ruin their week.
Yeah.
So the competitive nature just carries on through their life, and that would have an effect on things, I guess, on your work and on your production in that regard, and your mood, maybe. I don't know. It's a very, very thin line of you can really go over the wrong way. Like, I guess what we're saying is, if you aren't controlled with it, it can have a negative effect on things.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you're leaving me questioning what a person's motivation is to be that good at everything. That's the thing. Like, why do you need to walk around? You mentioned walking down the street. I don't know if I haven't seen the documentary, so I don't know if it was you actually mean that walking down the street and being seen a certain way was important to him. But I imagine it is for a lot of people, because you see people who have a certain body language where they look like they're carrying suitcases, or they carry some sort of swagger with them as they go about their day.
Yeah.
For some reason, it's important to them to be seen a certain way, even though there's nothing on the line. So it leaves me questioning, what is our motivation every day to do what we do?
It just makes me think about the deep-seated stuff, I guess, and I'm just trying to word it properly, with maybe how they were raised, like early days, what they might have gone through as a family, what they went through as an individual, what their parents instilled. Because you think about, touching on parenthood, like we have a captive audience of these children for such a long time. And if we produce the wrong message, and again, it's another topic, but if we produce the wrong message and create this, lack of better words, a monster, then these kids know no better. And then all of a sudden they become adults, and, so that competitiveness has to have been put in there somewhere in that early stage. You're not just born a competitive beast.
Yeah.
It's a learned behavior.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Jared. Yeah. I don't know if the documentary went into that, but I imagine that. And look, I'm not taking anything away from an amazing athlete's accomplishments. I look at all the, especially in tennis at the moment, the big three, which is really going to end up being the big one with Novak. I think it's amazing what they've done. They've inspired the world. They've lifted the entire game. Good on them. But I wonder how much of it is about trying to get the love or approval of a parent. For example, look, now you and I, we've mentioned Tiger Moms before. That was very early on when we were still doing this in person. And the other end of the spectrum, well, not the other end of the spectrum, sorry, the male version of that is the footy dad, I think. And you and I, we've seen a lot of footy dads in our time. In fact, in Western Sydney, there were rules in certain sporting codes where parents had to sign some sort of code of conduct due to their behaviour. So I think that says a lot, doesn't it? And I wonder how much of these competitive instincts, like you said, is learned behaviour. That's a really good point, Jared.
Yeah. It just made memories come back when you just mentioned the footy dads and the footy mums and the screaming from the sidelines. These poor kids, and I say poor kids, I was one of them. Well, I wasn't having screaming parents, but I was in that same sort of team where, parents of your mate next to you or parents of the opposition were just screaming to rip people's heads off and calling these kids all names. I mean, this is, this has probably changed now. Like I would imagine, there's still that competitive nature and there's still that, and this is from the parent side of things. There's still that competitive nature there, but I think there's the penalties and the what do you call it? Like not being shunned, but you know what I mean? Like the public shame of sitting on the sideline and carrying on like a pork chop and yelling at kids is and it should be not acceptable. So I think back when we were playing, in the early 90s, when we were sort of playing as kids, that still happened to a certain degree. And I think that's where the code of conduct things started to come in, like people were like, you know what, you play against that particular team, there's 3 or 4 parents that are going to carry on. Yeah. And, some of the things that you hear from the sidelines. I was pretty lucky whenever I played. I think I must have had earmuffs on for the sidelines. I remember my mum saying, "Do you hear me? Cheering for me?" I said, "No, I don't actually." It's just a blur. It's all whatever's going on in the game. But it's the competitive. As a kid, it's a learned behaviour. I mean, you see your parents doing that, and what are you going to do when your kid starts playing, sport? So. Now's the point where those kids are now grown up to be parents on the sideline. So it's sort of, we're still at the end of it, but like I said, the public shaming and then there's legal things involved now,
like assault.
There's just it's one of those things, mate. It's interesting to see and be a part of, I guess. And it just posed the question, about the whole competitiveness to me, and I wonder, like how it affects, you're just sitting around like a family situation. So you're sitting around the dinner table with your in-laws or something, and you're playing a game of and you get so competitive that. You throw the cards down. Like, I'm not saying that I do, but I'm just or Monopoly, and it turns into, World War III,
well, if someone, has 2 draw 4 cards, it can get pretty heated, Jared. It happens in our
especially when they gloat about it.
Exactly.
My daughters gloat about it when they give me draw 4s.
Exactly. And when they conspire to slap it on you every single time, that's what I don't like, Jared. Yeah, I've got a reason to fly off the handle.
So this is a wrong subject, is it? I struck a chord.
It's pretty raw, man. You're supposed to clear this stuff before we get on air. But look, I just want to make it clear that I love what competition can bring it out in us. I certainly, would hate for us to go, oh yeah, look, let's just all peel it back. Let's all let's regulate and say that people can only train this many hours, and we've got to peel back a bit because it was too much. I saw this documentary and I thought it was too much for this one man to bear all this on his shoulders. So let's all stop, and we're capping the working week, the training week at 38 hours. Yeah. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just questioning, an individual's motivation. And if you're doing it because you love the game and you just want to get so good on you. But really, I think if you can dedicate yourself that much to one pursuit, whether it's music or sport or anything, and want to be the best at it, good on you. It's just that life is really, really rich, and there's so many different aspects to it. And it's so easy to become imbalanced. That's all. So if everything you do is through this lens, then you may miss out on seeing a lot of other things.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, whilst we talk about, and I'm just pretty much going to repeat what you said, whilst we talk about competitiveness, what would the world look like if, everything was just bland and we all got trophies and,
exactly.
We all got the participation trophy at the end of the competition and said, well done, guys. I mean, it definitely has its benefits for confidence, but, it's one of those things. It's a bit of a, and maybe it's these guys like your Michael Jordans and your elite, Novaks and Rafas and all that. They don't have a ceiling on that competitiveness. Whereas I think a lot of people kind of go, okay, I'm going to be competitive and, to get this job, or I'm going to be competitive, but yeah, they've controlled it to that.
Yeah.
Actual. Whereas I think there's a certain mindset that these greats, and we've only mentioned 2 sports, but there's greats, and we've only mentioned sport. We don't have to be competitive just in sport, but these people that have excelled in their chosen, their chosen sort of thing, that they don't have a ceiling on the competitiveness. They just want to be, and where do they stop? I guess that's where do you stop? So
I think they want to be remembered the same way that, Julius Caesar is remembered. They want that proverbial statue. They want that place in history. And that's a great motivator, I think. It really is. But like I said, for us ordinary people, it'd be pretty toxic for us to walk around with that mindset all the time. I certainly couldn't be that switched on all the time. And I hope that these people who do it do have fulfilling lives and relationships.
Yeah. And I hope so too. And but what fulfills them, from what I can see, they're super competitive, is like the next step. So you think of someone who's great at what they do, they've reached the pinnacle. What do they do? So in Michael Jordan's case, he retired. And then he goes, well, my next challenge is to come out of retirement as a 38-year-old and then dominate again.
Yeah.
So that's his competitive nature coming through. Like these little stories that he told, and I'm not going to give away anything, but just things like he'd go out to dinner, and like he was playing a team in Atlanta. So they got there and he'd go out to dinner, and the restaurant he was at, the opposition coach was there. So the opposition coach ordered him an entree that was full of fat and stuff. So he would, be sluggish the next day when they played his team. And he's like, so I ate that. And then I went out and scored 50 on him just to show him that, and it was just these little competitive natures that just would get him up.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. And I think all these people that have that's their thing that just keeps coming. It just keeps coming no matter what it is. So I don't think there's a ceiling, but I would imagine that everyone in their life kind of know that that's the way that they are, and it's right, wrong, or otherwise. I don't know, but they've produced some amazing things for us to see.
Yeah, exactly. I certainly don't think there's a right or wrong in any of this. I think it's, you take this path, this is what you get. You take that path, that's what you get. So you've got to balance it. Not necessarily balance even, but you just got to ask yourself, what is the most important thing to you? And if it is being remembered as the greatest of all time, then you go for it, really. I hope that you can understand why you feel that that's what success looks like, which leads me to the question, Jared, what does success look like? What does it mean to be successful? Because am I meant to compare myself to my peers, and which peer am I supposed to compare myself to? I mean, Roger Federer is basically the same age as us. He's just turned 40. If he's the measure of success, then
we're very much down the rung of
exactly. And I'm right down the bottom, definitely. Now, so what does it mean to be successful?
I think it's a personal thing. Like, me and you are different people, and we would think that a different answer. Like, we might agree on some points, but for me, being successful is being happy and being with, being where you want to be. So I know that's super, super broad and get off the fence, would you, Jared? But that to me is just is I don't have to think about that. It's happy in your decisions. And to me, that's a success. Like, sometimes your decisions might lead you to a career that pays you $300,000 a year and you can afford wonderful things and have all these material things. But sometimes your decisions and your happy place leads you to a place where you're not so well off in regards to money. But tell me, those people are still happy. Like, they don't need the boats and the cars and the jewelry or whatever. They appreciate what they have because that's the decisions they made. I mean, that's a really good space to be in. And coming from a time where recently I wasn't happy with where I was work wise and how I was doing things. So I wasn't feeling successful, but I've made that change and now I feel successful. I don't look at my paycheck or I don't look at my belongings. I look at my situation. Yeah. And that to me is success.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like you've given yourself permission to look at the important things in life and not go by these numbers, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. No numbers. And also I suppose it's really hard to not actually get caught up in, people's lives, especially in this social media age where, like, I think we've touched on it, you see everybody that you're probably not supposed to see. Like, I mean, throughout your past, you've had time with them, but, you're friends with them on social media and then all of a sudden it pops up that so-and-so was doing this or so-and-so was doing that, or they've just bought a new house or a car or a boat. And then it's really hard not to compare yourself to some people, but you don't know their situation. And, they might have, like I said, they might have a wonderful job that pays them very well, but they might not want to do that job, like it's really hard. I suppose it's just not comparing yourself to the rest of it. It's just finding your happy place. And that's been successful.
Look, let's just for a second assume that these people on social media are completely authentic, that they do have the job of their dreams. They did buy the house of their dreams. They own several jet skis and bass guitars as well.
Lucky people.
Yeah, lucky people. Now, let's assume that's all true. Does that diminish anything about your life at all, just because they're doing exactly what they want to do?
I don't think so. I think, but again, it's a personal thing of not comparing. Like, if they're in a situation where they're, like I said, doing everything they want to do, and you're in a situation doing everything you want to do, for me, we're not that it has to be a competition, but we're on the same level. It means that we're both happy, and that's awesome. Yeah, to me, but it's easy. Like I was saying, it's easy to fall into that if you're having a bad day and then so-and-so is out on his boat, jet skiing around whilst playing his bass guitar. And I mean, that's pretty hard to compare with, really.
Exactly.
But, I don't know. Do you think that though? Like, I mean, obviously, do you agree with what I'm saying? Is there something you want to add to that?
I think it's completely natural to compare yourself to other people. It's kind of like where you're at. Like, that's just life. You look at maps, you look at the stars to find out, the position of the planet. Well, we do the same as people. We look at others people to see our relative position, don't we? It's like, this is where I'm up to in life. This is the kind of animal I am. And that's how you form your identity, by comparing it to, firstly, nature. You work out what kind of animal you are. In your case, you're a bigger guy than me. So you've got success on the ground. If we were a tree-dwelling species, then I would, be considered elite compared to you, right? Because I could scale trees more easily. So we look around us to see where we're at. And in terms of success, well, economic and financial success is really important to us as a species. And, oh, wow, Jared brought that, that boar back to the cave. Wow, and I only brought this rabbit back. Well, that kind of shows Jared is a better animal than I am. So that's all continued through to this day. Jared's got a tandem jet ski. I've only got a single rider. So,
Sorry.
So that hurt, Jared. I'll admit that really hurt.
Well, tough.
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
Sorry, I've just had my cup of concrete, Jared. So I'm back now.
Yeah, good.
So look, it's completely natural to compare yourself to other people, and I wouldn't discourage it. I'd just say, look, just understand it for what it is. It's a natural reflex to look at your neighbor and go, hey, this is, oh, wow, that guy's got this, I've got this. But ultimately, it comes down to comparing yourself to you, maybe where you were 5 years ago, a year ago, even a day ago, and making sure that you're still moving forward, whatever that is. Now, in my case, especially with guitar, I learned to play this song. It's called Skip to My Lou. It's a kid's song. I don't know if you know it, but I was so proud of myself. You know, I could, like just last week we were talking about guitar and I said, I'm going to learn to read music. I did it in one night. I learned how to, I mean, it's easy, by the way. So, and just to be able to read music and follow along and play some notes, to me was a huge accomplishment. Now you compare that to a 5-year-old kid who can already do that because they've been training already and they're playing violin. They'd be laughing at me going, oh my God, what a loser. But you know what? I'm totally secure in that. I've only just come to it. So what do you expect?
Okay. So what I picked up out of that is we've been graded against each other since we were kids. So you go to school, there's grades and it's like, oh, okay, Kiwi got this, you got that. You got an A, you got a B, you got a C. We've been graded, but I suppose it's a matter of grading ourselves against ourselves. Is that what you're sort of saying? Like saying, all right, well, yesterday I was here. A week ago I was here. I'm now, at this point. So, I suppose it's, like I said, it's been a natural thing just to be graded, like just to be level out.
Well, you said since we were kids, it's actually since we were sperm. It was the first one to get there, won.
True.
Really, like it's a competition from the very, very beginning. And then, of course, from there, many fetuses don't make it past a few days, a few weeks.
Yep.
So, they're miscarried. So they weren't good enough, to use brutal language. And I'm deliberately using that language, by the way, everyone, that they weren't good enough. And then you are good enough, you get into the world. And if you are still good enough, you survive to your adulthood. Yeah. But if you think about, like you said, we're compared to our peers, like that's what it's called. It's called a rank, an entrance rank. When you finish school, everyone's compared to see who's the best.
Yep. So that's ingrained in us.
Yeah. So look, it's totally natural to be competitive. It's just, how do you then use that to live a meaningful life rather than have it work against you? How do you determine your self-worth without other people's input? I remember there was an Olympian who came back from Rio having not won a gold medal. And I think she'd done a lot of soul searching before she came back to Australia. And she said, my self-worth doesn't come down to winning a gold medal. And I thought that was sad that was even in question.
Yeah.
This doesn't reflect who you are. People should love you for who you are, not whether or not you won by a fingernail or someone else's arm was slightly longer than yours.
Yeah. Yeah. The self-worth and gold medal shouldn't be in the same sentence as far as I'm concerned. Like, what? Yeah, I'm not even going to go into it. Like, it just makes you wonder, like the people that, like you said, if they won by a fingernail, are they now this, what? Like, it was literally because they didn't trip at the start, or, if you're Stephen Bradbury and won because everyone else fell over, are you now, like that to me is just doesn't make sense. But it is, still people still use that as a guide, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Jared, thank you so much for this chat. I'm learning a lot about myself and what it means for me to be successful. And I think your answer about success and being happy was perfect.
I hope so. Thanks for the chat, mate. And till next time.
Thanks, mate.
Bye.